Welcome in. This is Ira in Syracuse, New York. Corey Clark is not in Syracuse, New York. Well, we really don't know where Corey Clark is. He
And you're
could
not
be
gonna know. You're
in
not
any
gonna know.
in any
Yep.
country. I mean, it's just he's a man of mystery.
I'm not being held hostage. I apologize for my background. It's not great.
Florida State knocks off Syracuse tonight, 38-3. Third straight win, third straight blowout win. Corey Clark, two of them on the road. In the last 3 weeks, Florida State has beaten 3 ACC teams by a combined margin of, I think, 122 to like 24, something in that range. Just about 100 points. This is just what we've come to expect from Florida State football, right?
Yeah, man, I just kind of wrote that in my column. Like, I'm not going to qualify it because they're not good football teams that they beat. I don't care. I've been watching this team long enough. They've lost to horrible teams. They've barely beaten bad teams. They've gotten crushed by good teams. Like, what Florida State is doing isn't normal. They, like you said, they've outscored opponents. It was 122-24. And remember, Georgia Tech scored in the last play of the game when they were down by 30 points. Otherwise, it would be 122. There's been one touchdown scored that mattered in 3 weeks. And that was Georgia Tech after recovering that onside kick on the 3rd and 16. That's it. That's the only competitive touchdown that's been scored on Florida State in 3 games. And I feel like the defense is playing second fiddle. That's how well this offense is playing right now, and that's where this Florida State program is, man. This isn't normal. I said that I did the watch along in the first half, and I was telling Aslan as we did the watch along, Ira, like, this isn't right. This isn't what happens in college football in 2022. I don't care who you're playing. And what to me is so impressive about it is, yeah, Florida State's better than these teams, clearly, but they're not so supremely talented that you would expect them to go into somebody else's building and beat them by 35 or 42 points. They don't have that many more guys that are going to be drafted than Syracuse or Miami, yet they treat them like they're the 2013 Florida State team. This is really something what's happened these last 3 weeks, and not normal, right?
Yeah, it's funny what you said about the defense being kind of second fiddle. Not to Mike Norvell. He let Adam Fuller. Adam Fuller got to break the rock tonight. Last week it was Jared Verse kind of on behalf of the defense. But I actually asked Trey Benson tonight. I'm like, hey, Trey, Jordan Travis had 5 touchdowns tonight. He can't break the rock. We gotta let the defense do it 2 weeks in a row. But no, to your point, I mean, the defense is really the kind of the backbone of all this right now. They have been dominant. They have, not giving the opponent, any opportunity. I thought, one of the pivotal moments, I was just talking to Gene and Tom about it on their post-game show, was just, I think it was 14-0 or 14-3. It might have been 14-3 when Jordan gets the strip sack, and the defense goes out there and not only gets the ball back, they push them back and get the ball back. And, and then the offense just kind of keeps on trucking, and then they go up. And it's just like all 3 phases. They're playing well in all 3 phases. The offense is playing exceptionally well. Jordan has been really incredible these last couple weeks. The defense is playing at a high level. The running game is playing at a high level. And then the special teams. You got Ryan Fitzgerald out there hitting 45 yards after getting iced right before halftime. Then again, they get the ball to start second half and go right down. And it's just they're playing like such a complete team. And I was trying to think, Corey, I don't know when the last time we've seen a Florida – I mean, really, it might be 2013 since we've seen a Florida State team play like this on just playing well in all phases. 2014 team was dominant. The 15 and 16 teams won 10 games. But they were never really complete efforts. This feels like 2 or 3 really complete efforts.
And I wouldn't say the 2014 was dominant. It had dominant talent, but there were maybe 2 games that year that they dominated like this, like 2, and they had 15 NFL draft picks on it. So that's what I'm saying. Like this isn't winning games is one thing. Like Florida State was favored in all 3 of these games, but these last 2 weeks they were favored by basically a touchdown, and they went and won by 6 touchdowns in one game and 5 touchdowns in the next game on the road. Like you were talking about, it's really complimentary football, man. It's awesome. Mastromano punting every ball inside the 5. Like every time Syracuse got the ball, they were starting at the 4. They might as well have punted on second down when they got the ball that deep. The defense getting off the field so quickly. Special teams, Azarie Thomas learning a lesson and recovering an onside kick, because it was the exact same situation that Georgia Tech tried the onside kick 2 weeks ago, and my man went and caught this one. Could have maybe even returned it for a touchdown. The offense, it was just so simple. They didn't even do anything special. Like Jordan didn't make any real special plays. He just made the right play. Trey Benson's special. There's no doubt about that. That dude is turning into an incredible college football player. And McClain and Johnny Wilson treating those DBs like children. That was fun to watch. But overall, it was just a complete and utter domination and annihilation. And, you start to think, Ira, and I wrote it in my column, is like, yeah, you talk about that 13 team. There hasn't been a stretch like this since 13 where they dominated ACC opponents like this. And again, Florida State had some good teams during that stretch, and the ACC has not been great at all in the last 9 years. We've never seen a run like this. And I would think most people watching this, Ira, and most people reading my column and reading your stories and watching the watch along, they would probably say this is the most fun they've had watching Florida State since 2013. Because 2014 was like a dentist trip every week because they were down by 2 scores in the second half each week. And then 15 and 16, there were clearly some hiccups. This thing, I don't know how you don't love this team and root for this team because they play hard, they're getting so much better, and they're beating the bejesus out of teams that they aren't that much more talented than. But they are so much more well coached, and they play so much harder than those teams. And those are really cool traits to have if you're rooting for a football team.
Yeah, and I also think you talk about playing hard, also just the physicality.
Yeah.
Just not missing tackles, being aggressive, hitting guys, but then also offensively. And you mentioned Johnny Wilson and Malik McClain, those 2 touchdowns they had. But I thought the thing with Johnny Wilson, we expect that. He's 6'7", 230 pounds, whatever he is. He's going to run over some defensive backs. But we've never seen that from Malik McClain before. To just stiff arm a dude and say, no, you're not stopping me. This is one-on-one, and I'm better than you, and I'm going to get in the end zone. That's a mentality that this team seems to be getting across the board. And I think maybe it started some with the defense and Trey Benson, the way he runs. But now you're seeing it positions across both sides of the ball.
Man, they flew around on defense. Yeah. They flew around. Now, in that last drive that Syracuse didn't score on, there were a bunch of face masks and everything. It got kind of weird and choppy. But those guys were even flying around. And, those guys were just playing with reckless abandon, man. They were everywhere. Sean Tucker's a good running back, and he didn't have much of a chance. He had one run in that game, really the whole game. That defense, the way it flew around, and then I pointed it out to Tom Lang in the watch along when they kept replaying Benson's run that got down to the half inch line that they called back. Micah Pittman's almost blocking a guy out of the end zone, and they're up 31-3 in the fourth quarter. Like again, that's the thing I'm talking about. On the Benson's first long run on the first drive of the game, Johnny Wilson blocks a guy into the Syracuse bench. Like, these are the things that you just love to see because the offensive line is going to play hard because Alex Atkins is their coach, and they play hard, and that's a good offensive line. All these other guys, really, really physical. I think that's the right word, man. They are physically dominating these games, and that hasn't happened since Jameis was here. They just haven't physically dominated teams like this, and it makes you wonder, right, Ira? Like, maybe you don't want to put too much stock in 3 wins over Georgia Tech, Miami, and Syracuse. I mean, Miami and Syracuse are probably going to bowls, but you didn't just beat Clemson and Georgia back-to-back. I get it. But maybe you should put a little stock into what this program could be becoming right before our eyes because, again, they're not winning 27-20. They are blowing these teams the F out by halftime. That's not happening in college football. Doesn't that make you think, all right, this is only year 2.5 or 3. What could he be building here?
Yeah, I kind of feel a little bit bad for Syracuse because if this game had been played a month ago when Syracuse was playing really well and Florida State was scuffling around, it could have been completely different. But they're scuffling now, and Florida State's playing the best they've played in forever. And so, I mean, Syracuse just ran into a buzzsaw. What did you think about the last touchdown? Going for it and calling that play?
Oh, are you kidding? I loved it.
Okay, so I want you to talk about it, but the Gene was thought maybe it was a little too much, but I'm with you, but I want to hear what you had to say.
No, so I was talking with Tom. I was actually on the watch along right then. Aslan was eating his Zaxby's. So I was on the watch along there in the third quarter, and I was asking Tom, like, I wonder, you probably should just kick the field goal here, make it 34-3. I mean, but the worst thing that happens is even if you don't get it, Syracuse has the ball at their 2-yard line. But on that play on third down, where they're girdled up defensive tackle, the kid that was wearing that weird half orange girdle over his belly, he tackles Benson in the backfield and then does not a pelvic thrust necessarily, but just stares down the FSU sideline, does kind of a look at me taunt. And I really think, and I know Norvell would never admit it, at least not publicly.
I asked
Norvell,
him. He wouldn't. I asked him, and he
no,
wouldn't.
of course not publicly. I bet there was a part of him's like, are you really gonna you really just taunted us? You're down 31-3, partner. All right, here's whatever they call it. Whatever, it's not the Philly special for Florida State, but I loved it. I loved it for that kid that felt the need to talk trash down 28 points. I also think it sends a message to your team. Let's pulverize these guys. Let's get used to dominating teams and winning by 5 or 6 scores. But I just loved it because of the big fire hydrant kid at Syracuse that decided to taunt trash down 28 points. So there you go. Have some of this.
Yeah, Tom Lane called it the tally special.
There you go. That works. Yeah, sure. What's his name? Yeah.
Come on,
5'11", 266.
Come on, Aslan. We don't need to put the kid on the, on the video. Anyway, here's the thing, though. Like, I think the last thing you just said to me was the key to it. I believe, and again, Norvell wouldn't admit it, but I thought it was sending a message to his team. Like, we're not here to make friends. Yeah. We're not here to just be a good team. We're here to make enemies. We're here to, kick teams' asses. And that's, because if you think about it, that's how he coached when they stunk. Remember, like, against Notre Dame in a game they were going to lose, or the Clemson game when they were going to. But he plays with a killer mentality that he wants them to have. So now he's got the chance to do it, and he's damn sure going to do it. So I thought, and I was all for it, and I think it sends a message to the team that, look, this is not the Florida State team you came to play for. We're taking this to a different level. Now, whether or not they can do it against better teams, we'll see. Florida certainly looks like they've become a better team, so that looks like it's going to be a great game in 2 weeks. They've got Louisiana this Saturday with a great chance to, look, they just finished 5-3 in the conference for the first time since 2016. This game up here would give them a chance to, have a really close, put out the seniors on top. Well, the Florida game, I think, will be senior day. But there's still so much for this team. They had that 3-game losing streak, but there's still so much for this team to accomplish. Who knows what kind of bowl game they could get to if they win out. I mean, this is fun for this team.
It's fun to cover. It's fun for people to watch. It's a fun team to watch. And, I think you could safely say they're the third best team in the ACC. I also think they could beat Clemson. And we know they could beat Clemson. They didn't, but they certainly weren't blown off the field by Clemson. They outgained them. That they weren't. And then I think they could beat Carolina. Like they and as Norvell said after the game, I watched the post game. He's like, I think we're as good as anybody. Or we're playing as good as anybody right now. And that's true. Now, I wouldn't predict them to beat Georgia or Ohio State, but you know what I mean? But I think they could play with anybody not named those two schools in the country. That's just how well they're playing. That's how solid the defense is. It's not a spectacular defense, although the numbers are starting to become spectacular. But the offense is spectacular, or has been. And Syracuse had the 15th ranked defense in the country, man. And they just rolled. I mean, they could have had 500 yards and 50 points if they really, really wanted to. After doing what they did to Miami. So yeah. And I thought it was actually, man, weirdly, I know people are going to kind of grimace when I say this. I'd like seeing Florida do what they did today, because I think that game on Friday night is going to be really fun, and it's going to have more juice to it than it's had in a decade. Those are going to be two good quarterbacks, two really good offenses. The whole country is going to be watching. Florida State should be going for 9 wins. Florida might be going for, I guess, 8. I don't know what their record is. But that's going to be a really fun game, and that's a really good test for Florida State because, Florida played probably its best game of the year today, just like you could argue that Florida State played its best game of the year either today, this week, or last week. But that's cool, man. I don't know. I mean, I know people want Florida to always lose, but I thought that was cool because we're going to be counting down that game now. Now, you and I don't look ahead. We know who's on the schedule next. It's Louisiana. That's it. We're not thinking about anybody else. But you guys are, and that's going to be a really cool game, and that's going to be you get 13 days to prepare for it now. And man, I don't know, other than Ohio State, who would you say, Ira, has the absolute better offense than Florida State right now? I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, it would be hard to say. And one thing about that Florida game, it's going to be a whole lot better than that crap fest we watched 1 year ago between those two teams. One with an interim coach, and one playing like it didn't have a coach. It was that in 12 months, these two teams have come a long way. Bring out Georgia.
Think about this, Ira. When was the last time you were in that building? You remember?
This one 4 years ago, right?
Do you remember Abdul Bello trying to pick up DeAndre Francois after yet another sack? And Francois like, get out of here. That was in that building. And now think of how far this thing has come.
For people that don't remember, DeAndre Francois got sacked for like the 12th time in that game.
Right.
And when one of his offensive linemen reached down to lift him up, he just slapped his hand away.
Yeah.
He was so disgusted by
I'll get up myself. Man. Don't pick me up afterwards. Keep him off me. It might have been Jawan Williams. I forget. I apologize.
I think it was Abdul Bello.
But you think about where this program is and where that offensive line is, the quarterback play, all of it, the defense. It's really, really remarkable to think of where it was 2 years ago and where it is now. And where you can make an argument legitimately that this is one of the 10 or 15 best teams in the country. And they can play with anyone, literally play with anyone. They are crushing fools. So, yeah, man, it's fun to watch. I want to say this, and I'm not taking full credit for it, but since I got my glasses, Florida State is 3-0. So just do with that what you will, gang. I haven't really been able to see since 2013. Now that I got my glasses, it's like nothing. I don't even remember what the last 8 years were like.
You don't need to take credit for it, but I'll give you credit for it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Aslan. Thanks, Corey. This is Ira signing off from Syracuse, New York, where Florida State wins it 38-3. We'll have plenty of coverage coming at warchant.com. Corey's column, all the other coverage we got coming over the next 24, 48 hours. And then we get ready for Louisiana. And then Georgia, Corey. Georgia. We want Georgia.
Georgia? Let's stick with Florida for now. You don't want any part of Georgia. What's the matter with you? We want Florida. Florida's all we care about, man. And on 3. Subscribe. It's only $10 for a year, right, Ira?
Still going strong. See you guys.